chromatography. You know the principle of gas chromatography, right? So what is the principle of gas chromatography? The compounds are going to be separated
Physical adsorption.
in gas chromatography by using either solid or liquid stationary phase and gaseous mobile phase. Solid or liquid stationary phase and the gaseous mobile phase. The role of the mobile phase is to carry the solute molecules through the chromatographic column. The solutes are going to be separated based on the partitioning between the stationary phase and the mobile phase. And one of the primary requirements for the separation of solutes in gas chromatography is the solute molecules have to be converted into their gaseous state. By increasing the temperature, we will convert the solute molecules into gaseous state. And after the separation, how we are going to identify the solutes, how we are going to quantify the solutes by using variety of the detectors we have discussed. And more importantly, a thermal conductivity detector can be used as a universal detector for gas chromatographic separation. And apart from thermal conductivity detector, even we can use a flame emission detector or flame ionization detector. An electron capture detector is also be used. Apart from these three detectors, even thermionic detector, photometric detectors, mass spectrometric detectors, all these detectors can be used provided we have prior knowledge about the solutes. We can easily derive what type of solute present in the sample, how much amount of the solute present in the sample we can obtain by gas chromatography. So, like gas chromatographic technique, HPLC, which can be shortly denoted as HPLC, which is nothing but high performance or high pressure liquid chromatography, which you can see in the diagram what I have presented, the instrument or the chromatograph of HPLC. Here, the compounds are going to be separated in a medium of applied with very high pressure, very high pressure. The necessity of application of the pressure or necessity of creating the pressure is in order to increase the flow rate of the mobile phase, and as a result, as a consequence of the increased flow rate of the mobile phase, there is a rapid dilution of the solute molecules. Therefore, we can decrease the analytical time of separation. So as we succeed decreasing the analytical time of separation, the number of samples which can be subjected for separation by HPLC can also be more. So therefore, this is one of the important and widely used chromatographic techniques in the fields of pharmaceutical industries, environmental industries, and drug discovery industries and preparative laboratories, even in pesticide analysis, insecticide analysis, beverage analysis, and so on and so forth. So in today's class, let us discuss about the principle of HPLC, high pressure liquid chromatography or high performance liquid chromatography. How do we classify the HPLC based on the nature of the stationary phase and the type of interaction going to be occurred between the stationary phase and the solute molecule, and what kind of mobile phases we will use, instrumental aspects we have to understand, and what are the components of instruments, so what type of columns we will be using, and what are the various detectors we will be using in HPLC, and some applications of HPLC. Let us discuss in today's lecture. I don't think I can complete HPLC in today's discussion, so it may be prolonged to even tomorrow's class. So as much as possible, I will try to cover. You people have to note down. Whenever I say something, you have to note down. Simply listening is very, very useful, but in the meantime, you have to note down something that is going to help you in future. Okay. So you look at the principle of HPLC.
Yes, sir.
High performance liquid chromatography or high pressure liquid chromatography is a chromatographic technique which is used for the isolation, separation, characterization, and quantification of the analytes which are present in variety of the sample, and the samples may be of any origin, whatever may be the origin of the sample. In HPLC, liquid mobile phase will be used, Therefore, this can be simply called as liquid chromatography. The mobile phase, what we are going to use in HPLC will be liquid in nature. Liquid mobile phase will be used. Therefore, this will be belonging to liquid chromatography technique. So, since we are going to create the pressure inside the chromatography column, therefore the term is high pressure or high performance liquid chromatography. The term performance, high performance, is implied to the efficiency of the separation or the rate of separation what we can achieve at the end of the analysis. So if you look at the classification of HPLC, classification is done uh, based on the stationary phase. The mobile phase will be liquid. There is no any change irrespective of the liquid chromatographic technique. Irrespective of the liquid chromatographic technique, there is no change in the nature of the mobile phase. Mobile phase will be always liquid. But if you look at the stationary phase under liquid chromatography, the stationary phase may be a solid, it may be a liquid, it may be an ion exchange resin, it may be a microporous bead, it may be a chemically modified resin. So all this variety of the stationary phases are going to be employed while separating the solute molecules by high performance liquid chromatography. I can say normally under liquid chromatographic technique. We can create high pressure. We can create high pressure in whichever the liquid chromatographic technique where any one of these has been employed as stationary phase, either solid stationary phase or liquid stationary phase or ion exchange resin or microporous bead or chemically modified resin, whichever is employed as a stationary phase, we can apply the high pressure, we can create the high pressure inside the chromatography column. That's what the term HPLC. So, using the liquid mobile phase and the solid stationary phase, the separation mechanism which is responsible for the separation of the solute molecule will be more commonly adsorption. So you know the meaning of adsorption, I no need to explain again and again because this is a physical phenomena, it is a surface phenomena. The compounds containing likely functional groups when compared to silica or modified silica, they are going to adsorb over the surface of the stationary phase. And this surface phenomena is called as adsorption. And this adsorption will become responsible for the serial elution of the compounds one by one from the chromatographic column. And if you take liquid stationary phase means it will be present in the interstices of a solid. We can use modified silica as we saw in the gas chromatography. If we modify silica polydimethyl siloxane, 5% phenyl polydimethyl siloxane, 50% phenyl polydimethyl siloxane, or 50% trifluoromethyl polydimethyl siloxane, polyethylene glycol, etc. All those are liquid stationary phases. Likewise, here also, if you use any liquid and which is immobilized in the interstices of the solid, the liquid present in the interstices of the solid, I can say in the exterior of the solid surface, that is going to function like a stationary phase. So the mobile phase is the liquid which is traveling through the chromatographic column and which is also carrying the solute molecules. Therefore, the solute molecules are going to partition between this liquid mobile phase and the liquid stationary phase. So most common interaction, most common phenomena for the separation of the solute in HPLC while using liquid stationary phase is the partition process. Solute molecule is going to be partitioned between the stationary phase and mobile phase. And when you use ion exchange resin is nothing but it will be containing either positively or negatively charged polymeric group in a resin, and along with that positively or negatively charged polymeric group, there will be a negatively or positively charged free ion present in the resin. These free ions are movable, they are not stationary, but the charge which is fixed to the polymeric bead, which will be fixed, that cannot be interchanged. But the free ions, what they are carrying the charge, they are likely to be replaced by the ions of likely charge. Means, if a cation exchange resin you are using, the cation will be the free ion and the anion exchange region is used, the anion will be the free ion. So cation or anion can be replaced in place of cation or anion of the ion exchange region. So the process is known as ion exchange. The cation is going to exchange the cation of the resin, the cation which is present in the solute, which is going to exchange the cation of the ion exchange resin, then that is called as cation exchange equilibrium. If the anion present in the solute is going to exchange the anion of the resin, that is called as anion exchange equilibrium. And the respective chromatographic technique is called as cation exchange chromatography or anion exchange chromatography. So the separation mechanism here is ion exchange mechanism, ion exchange equilibrium. And if we use microporous beads will be having their pore maze, and into the pore maze the molecules are able to be penetrated rapidly. Whichever the solutes which are having lesser size, they will penetrate into the pore maze, and whichever the solute molecules which are larger in size, they are not able to be penetrated into the pore maze. So it is just like a process of filtration, a sieving, molecular sieving. You have siever in your house, so sieving process will be done based on the size. What are all the solute molecules which are having larger in size, they can be removed out by simple sieving process, and the same mechanism can be expected in size exclusion chromatography. So size exclusion chromatographic technique will be utilizing a microporous bead as a stationary phase, in which the separation mechanism will be size exclusion principle. And this is another typical type of liquid chromatographic technique in which a chemically modified resin or microporous beads can also be used. The chemically modified resins such as agarose or cephalose or cephaldex. So these are the stationary phases we are going to use. And the buffers, the ionic buffers or high ionic strength solutions can be used as mobile phases while performing the separation of solute by affinity chromatography. And this affinity chromatographic technique is widely used in biochemical laboratories for the separation of protein molecules, large molecular mass biomolecules. So affinity chromatography is a most suitable technique for the separation of biomolecules. It may be protein, it may be DNA fragments, it may be antibodies, whatever it is. So all these solutes are able to be separated by affinity chromatography. So this is how we can give the classification of liquid chromatography. And whatever the liquid chromatographic technique of all this, whether you go for solid liquid chromatography or liquid liquid chromatography, ion exchange chromatography, or size exclusion chromatography, or affinity chromatography, it is prevalent to say that even we can create the pressure inside the chromatographic column so that the flow rate can be increased and the time for analysis can be reduced. Therefore, we can succeed the analysis more rapidly. So, of course, we shall study the principle of ion exchange chromatography, size exclusion chromatography, and affinity chromatography when we come to the respective topics. Okay. So as we sign the instrumentation component of gas chromatography, the schematic of HPLC or liquid chromatograph is also very, very important. Uh, the main component in liquid chromatograph, as per the definition what we have given, is that the liquids. We may use a single liquid as a mobile phase, or we may use a mixture of two liquids as a mobile phase, or even we may use three different liquids at three different proportions as a mobile phase. So if you consider solvent A, solvent B, and solvent C, or liquid A, liquid B, liquid C, these three different liquids will be present in the liquid reservoir, so that those liquids are able to be passed towards the chromatographic column by simple pumping. By simple pumping. This pump is connected to the solvent reservoir. This pump is connected to the solvent reservoir. By pumping, we can create the pressure so that the solvents present in the reservoir can be sucked into the capillary, and they can be made easily to flow towards the chromatographic column very simply. So solvent reservoirs are very important. They will be holding the liquids, maybe single liquid or multiple liquids, so whatever it is. Pumps, which are very much essential in high pressure liquid chromatography or high performance liquid chromatography, because pressure is needed to be created. This creation of the pressure or the application of the pressure is mainly done by the pumps. Variety of the pumps are going to be used. So let us see what kind of pumps we will use in the forthcoming slides. And there is no any difference with respect to the sample injection system or the sample introduction. Here also we will use wall loop injectors or hypodermic microsyringe. If the solute is converted into liquid, the solute present in the sample which was in the solid state has been converted into liquid. Several milliliters or microliters of the solution can be taken in the microsyringe and that can be easily injected into the injection port of the chromatographic column. And the column, as I said in the previous class while explaining the gas chromatographic separation, it is the heart of the chromatograph. So if we are unable to choose appropriate column, the separation cannot be succeeded. And of course, the detector, after the solutes are separated, what kind of a solute was present in the sample and how much of the solute was present in the sample, that can be given by the response of the detector. And the data system is also very important to amplify the signal given by the detector so that we can have a chromatogram in our hand, either for the quantification or qualification. So, as I said, solvent reservoirs are to hold the solvents. Pump is to generate the specified flow and pressure. Sample injection will be done by means of injector. Separation master is a column. Detector is to detect the solute molecules, and the chromatograms are generated by the data system. This is a very simple schematic of HPLC instrument. Very simple schematic I can show you. Say, first component is the solvent reservoir. You assume this is a conical flask or a wash bottle, whatever it is. This can be made by either plastic or borosilicate glass or polytetrafluoroethylene. Like this, inert containers are used because they should not react with the mobile phase or they should not react with the solvent which is present inside this container. So the solvent reservoirs are very, very important. These are solvent reservoirs are filled with mobile phase. If we are going to use 2 or 3 different liquids as a mobile phase of different proportions, then we can use 3 different solvent reservoirs and we can connect them into this particular capillary, and the pressure is going to be applied in order to create the flow rate. So whatever it is, so solvent reservoir. Then after the solvent reservoir, the pump will be situated and this pump will be switched on in order to create the flow of the mobile phase. The mobile phase will be drawn from the solvent reservoir and which will be made to move towards the chromatographic column. So this is the chromatographic column which is placed, which is the separation master. And whatever the solute molecule, what we have to separate, it is containing several number of solutes that can be injected through the injection port, which can be present before the analytical column, before the HPLC column. So of course, this is compulsory to introduce the sample before the column. Before the column, soon after the introduction of the sample is carried by the mobile phase towards the column, and hence the separation is going to be taken place. So once the separation is over in the chromatographic column, the solutes which are all separated will be moving towards the detector, and the detector will be giving the signal, and the display unit will be amplifying the signal given by the detector, and we will be ending up with the chromatograms. And all other waste will be going out as a waste from the vent. So this chromatogram is going to be very useful either for the characterization of the solute, what kind of the solute present or how much amount of the solute present we can easily obtain by means of this particular chromatogram. Here, directly we can characterize the solute if the mass spectroscopic detector is placed in place of detector. The chromatogram will be a master to give the nature of the solute, what is the fragmentation factor, what is the m by z value. Based on that m by z value, we are able to characterize what kind of the solute present there. So this is about the schematic of HPLC. This is also a schematic of HPLC, but it is having some more additional components other than what I have already showed in the previous slide. This is the cross-sectional view of HPLC chromatograph. You can see there are a number of solvent reservoirs which are present here. Solvent reservoir 1, 2, 3, 4. So solvent reservoirs are present here. And these solvent reservoirs have been connected to the pump, which is present here. Pump is present here. And this is a solvent proportionating valve, because in the instrument we can program in such a way that what is the volume of solvent A, what is the volume of solvent B, similarly C and D must be chosen. So suppose 30 ml of solvent A is chosen, 20 ml of solvent B is chosen, 40 ml of solvent A is chosen, and 10 ml of solvent D is chosen, like this: A, B, C, D, 30, 20, 40 and 10. Different proportions of mobile phases are going to be chosen, or mixture of 4 different liquids are going to be chosen in order to get a single mobile phase. So this will be done by solvent proportionating valve. This will be connected to a programmer, and programmer will be handled that can be regulated in order to choose the required volume of the individual liquids from the respective reservoirs. And here, regulated helium source you can see, and this regulated helium source, uh, it is nothing but a degasser. Degasser, D-E-G-A-S-S-E-R. Degasser is required in order to inactivate any particulates present in the liquid. Liquid means the mobile phase, what we are going to use, or even in order to destroy the oxygen if present. If the dissolved oxygen is present in the liquid, what we are going to use as a mobile phase in the forthcoming step, the oxygen has to be destroyed. Otherwise, oxygen will create a problem, because it is a strong oxidizing agent that may destroy the solute molecules during the separation process. So, uh, apart from this oxygen and particulates, there may be a droplets of the impurities may also be present in the liquids, and they are going to be destroyed by purging with the helium gas. By purging with the helium gas, when we purge these liquids with a helium gas, this helium will make that particulate matter or oxygen or any impurities present to dissolve in helium, so that these bubbles are going to be destroyed in order to convert the mobile phase into a clean mobile phase. So the activity of these things will be destroyed. That's what the purging is very, very important. And this process is called as degassing. Degassing. So after degassing, and after selection of the suitable volumes of the different liquids, they can be sucked towards the pump by applying the outlet pressure, by creating the vacuum, by creating the sucking. So pump will suck the mobile phase after mixing different liquids, and that can be passed towards a pulse dampener. This pulse dampener should not pulse dampener is available in order to destroy any pulses, in order to destroy any pulses which are available in the mobile phase front. If pulses are available, they are going to create some unnecessary pressure rate. So they will affect the flow rate. Therefore, pulse dampener will be working in such a way that there must not be any unwanted pulses present in the mobile phase front. Okay. Then after this pulse dampener, there is a connection to the injection port. There is a connection to the injection port. Here exactly the sample is going to be introduced, and there is a drain wall in order to drain the solution. So any particulate matter are going to be removed which are having larger in size. So primary syringe is going to be used in order to introduce the sample into the injection port. After the sample is introduced through the injection port, the solute molecules are carried towards a pre-filter. This is called as a free filter. This free filter is required. This free filter is required in order to remove the particulate matters present in the mobile phase. The free filters which are used to remove any particulate matters present in the mobile phase which were escaped from these solvent reservoirs before. So this priming syringe In some type of HPLC, this priming syringe can also be used to introduce the sample, or if we wanted to introduce some buffer, or if we wanted to introduce some modifiers, we can make use of this. So after passing through this free filter, we can check the pressure, whether the adjusted pressure at the pump is maintained here by means of this back pressure regulator, because the pressure will be up to 6000 psi while performing the separation by HPLC. Whether the 6000 or 5000 psi pressure is going to be maintained constantly or not, that can be seen by means of this back pressure regulator. And the pressure transducer will display the pressure, whatever the pressure is going to be adjusted or which has been adjusted. Then this is the exact port to introduce the sample, mostly either here or here. So majorly this is used to introduce the organic modifier, because other than these liquids, if we wanted to increase any organic modifier, we can make use of this port, otherwise this can be blocked. This injector valve is used to introduce the sample into the chromatography column, and in the chromatography column, suitable stationary phase will be present. Solute molecules are going to be separated, and solutes which are separated will move towards the detector, and the detector will be functioning for its role, and the solute molecules are obtained for their information about the characterization, what type of solute present or what is the amount of the solute present. So this is the process done while using high pressure liquid chromatography or high performance liquid chromatography. So you can state the principle of high pressure liquid chromatography or high performance liquid chromatography. The principle can be stated that it is a liquid chromatographic technique in which the solutes are going to be separated. The solutes are going to be separated by creating a pressure in order to increase the flow, and the separation is going to be taken place either by adsorption or ion exchange equilibrium or partitioning or size exclusion or with different affinities. So this is how you can state the principle of high pressure liquid chromatography or high performance liquid chromatography. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Sir.
Yes, sir.
Is there any problem?
Sir.
No problem.
No, sir. No, sir.
Is it
No,
clear?
sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay. Okay. So let us study something about the mobile phase reservoirs. As I told you, the mobile phase container must be inert. So the inert lines will be present inside the